support the SEE presentations. This is our last day of senior oral defense presentations. It's been a lovely journey. I have learned so much from the presenters, and I hope that you will have the same experience because you're joining us today. I want to remind you, if you're just coming in, please use your technology responsibly. If you have a phone with you, set it now to silent mode, vibrate. And then I also want you to invite you to turn your attention away from the external world and toward the presenter who's presenting today. It's my pleasure to present John.
Hello, my name is Johnny Montano. This term I researched the differences in the competitive gaming industry of South Korea and the United States, as well as the highly debated idea of competitive gaming being considered a sport. The title of my senior oral defense presentation is A New Era, the Legitimacy of Competitive Gaming in the United States. Before we begin, we must first define what competitive gaming is. Competitive gaming, also commonly known as esports, is essentially the professional or amateur playing of games through electronic devices, whether it be as a career or hobby. Many professional teams, consisting of both players and staff, such as coaches, strategists, managers, and sports psychologists, live in gaming houses. Some professional gamers spend up to 10 hours a day training 6 days a week, as well as countless hours of game reviewing and strategy meetings. Ever since the rise to prominence, however, a certain question has remained unanswered. Is competitive gaming a sport? Many people state that it is not, dismissing the claim as either a cry for attention or as an excuse for their, as perceived, lazy lifestyles, while others claim that it takes as much skill, practice, dedication, and endurance as traditional sports. According to the Oxford Dictionary, a sport is defined as an activity involving physical exertion or skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. While the Oxford Dictionary's definition of a sport does very clearly highlight the physical portion of it, it does not fully encompass everything that is considered a sport. In his article for the Inquirer, Efigenia Toledo discusses the concept of second-level Olympic sports. He mentions how polo and cheerleading are official second-level Olympic sports. These two seem reasonable, as they fit in perfectly with the Oxford definition. But the next two, chess and racing, seem more odd, as well as esports, which have been approved by the Korean Olympic Committee as second-level Olympic sports. This is where Klaus Tiedemann comes in. Klaus Tiedemann, a sports scientist, proposed another definition for the term sport. He said that sport is a cultural field of activity in which human beings voluntarily go into a relation to other people with a conscious intention to develop their abilities and accomplishments, particularly in the area of skilled motion, to compare themselves with these other people according to rules put self or adopted without damaging them or themselves deliberately. When using it in his paper titled On the Scientific Relevance of Esports, Michael Wagner modifies Tiedemann's proposed definition in order to fully encompass sports like chess or racing, and other activities which are considered borderline sports, such as golf or bowling. He states that sport is a cultural field of activity in which people voluntarily engage with other people with a conscious intention to develop and train abilities of cultural importance and to compare themselves with these other people in these abilities according to generally accepted rules and without deliberately harming anybody. The popularity of competitive gaming is not all talk. They have the numbers to back themselves up. The graph above, found in Jose Lincuna's Esports versus Sports Finals Viewership article for World Esports, shows the number of unique viewers that watch the finals of the NBA, MLB, and the League of Legends World Championship during 3 different years. As you can see, the number of people viewing this esport event is higher than the amount of people watching the traditional sport events, despite it being around for a much shorter period of time. League of Legends, a multiplayer online battle arena game created by Riot Games, is currently the most popular video game and esport in the world, so it is to be expected that its viewership at least rivals that of traditional sporting events. So let's take a look at some of the slightly less popular esports. In 2014, Valve's Dota 2 tournament, the International Four, the Dota equivalent to the League of Legends World Championship, reached 20 million unique viewers, while in the same year, the MLB and NBA Finals reached 24 million, 18 million unique viewers, respectively. In 2015, 27 million unique viewers tuned into ESL 1 Cologne 2015, the biggest Counter-Strike global offensive tournament in the world. During this year, the MLB Finals reached only 17 million viewers, while the NBA Finals reached 23 million. And although still a relatively new esports title, Smite by Hi-Rez reached a viewership of 2.9 million viewers during their 2015 World Championship. Although many people are still skeptical about the idea of a lifestyle focused around video games, mainstream media in the United States has been slowly picking up on its rising popularity and catering to its audiences. Despite ESPN's president, John Skipper, being reluctant to the idea of covering esports, ESPN has started dipping its toes into the esports scene, putting out articles that cover things like roster swaps, rumors, and general news about the esports scene. They have also broadcasted parts of some esports tournaments on channels like ESPN 2 and 3, even if only a small amount. Other news outlets, such as the New York Times, have also become increasingly involved in esports. And even Playboy magazine has also delved into the scene, with Harold Goldberg's article on League of Legends featuring the Cloud9 League of Legends team. In an article for Red Bull, Rob Zacny briefly discusses sponsorship in the esports scene. He mentions that many South Korean teams are sponsored or even owned by multi-billion-dollar Korean companies such as Samsung or SK Telecom. He claims that the exposure and traction competitive gaming is gaining makes it a safe investment for these types of companies to support the industry. And although some not as big individual players or teams receive sponsorship from prominent Western companies as well, such as Red Bull, the United States Air Force, Twitch.tv, Geico, Logitech, and others. Despite many people in the sports industry rejecting the idea of esports as a whole, a few of them have come out in their defense. Mark Cuban, the owner of the NBA's Dallas Mavericks, played in a League of Legends show match during Intel Extreme Masters San Jose 2015, an esports tournament for many different titles. Before the game, he was asked to respond to Colin Cowherd's and ESPN commentators' negative comments regarding esports. He responded by saying, "It's one of the smartest games I've ever played. You've got to be quick. This is a real sport, and people are going to figure it out really, really quick." He has also expressed his desire to form a professional League of Legends team of his own in the near future. Another prominent member of the NBA, Rick Fox, former player of the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics, has also shown his opinion on the subject. Midway through 2015, Fox bought out the League of Legends team Gravity, renaming it to Echo Fox, and is now participating in the North American League Championship Series, the official league for League of Legends. When asked by a TMZ reporter if he thought video games were indeed a sport, he answered, "A lot of people know I stand with e-athletes as professional athletes. Having been a professional athlete myself, getting to know them and watching what they do, how they train, it's all consuming." Competitive gaming and traditional sports do not seem to be as different as you might at first think. Both fit under the human's modified definition of a sport, and perhaps, more importantly, take an extreme amount of dedication and skill, something that many people are lacking to compete at the highest possible level. Michael Wagner stated in his paper on the scientific relevance of esports, traditional sports have dominated the spectator sport industry because of old values, but as we enter the era of information and technology, the importance of certain societal values will begin to shift and widen. Thank you.
Hi, very nice presentation. My first thought is why do you think that this question is, to whom, why is this issue like important?
That is a good question. This issue is, I feel like this issue is important because in an era of increasingly, which things become increasingly predominant on technology, a lot of people are having issues debating whether we spend too much time focused on these types of technologies. So when people argue about this issue, I think it's just stemming back to the idea that how people think that people back in the day used to spend more time outside and they weren't stuck to the TV all the time. So I think it has to do with all of that.
There's also a cultural element in play here, and in your paper, in the draft of the paper, you talked extensively about the difference between the way esports are treated in other cultures and the difference there and the way they're treated within Western culture. Can you talk a little bit about that now?
Sure. Well, mainly what is different about the esports cultures in the United States and places like South Korea is that South Korea is a much more technology reliant and dependent country. This all started because of laws placed on things like broadband and internet were removed in Korea, which means that a lot of people there was a lot more money to be put into these type of things. So people started investing into internet and video games and computers. So from there, a cultural division stems, which is simply that technology is better in Korea. So from there, something called PCDang, which exists in Korea. It's basically a kind of like a cafe, but it's full of computers. So people go there and play for very long periods of time, which is something that is not present in the United States. As well as, for example, in Taiwan, esports were declared an official sport, and in the United States, it is a very common thing not common, but not that uncommon, that people will not take these things seriously. For example, the commentator for ESPN that I mentioned earlier, Colin Cowherd, he said something along the lines of, if you make me watch some of this again, I will put a gun to my mouth and shoot myself. So,
Johnny, I think first I think you really supported yourself really well. I like the way your evidence was very, very rich. But so the question in places like Asia and the United States, is it also less like presenting it in a way as if there's a lot more support just because it's more popular? Is it South Korea? Many of the most important companies in South Korea, technological companies like Samsung and LG, and don't they profit tremendously from supporting these kind of industries in that country? I mean, isn't that why broadband is available in South Korea at such a high level? Because a lot of the really powerful chaebol are simply behind having that support.
Yes, I think that has a very important impact on it. But a lot of these companies also just stemmed from the fact that these laws were all taken out of place. So there's also a thing, cultural differences also have a lot to do with this. For example, when you ask, there's a very big difference in the amount of dedication that players from these two different regions put in. For example, I know one of the players in North America that comes from Korea. He's known to play, for example, like 15 hours a day when he doesn't have a good game, just because he thinks that he's not playing well enough. But in contrast, his American counterparts are all less affected by this. They feel less of a sense of pride. So I think that also has a lot to do with it.
Sure, I'm sorry, I just want to follow up. But do you think that has to do with, and again, this isn't criticism, this is just an observation, is it the cultural mindset of America to be more physical? Is it more of a nation of physicality by its very nature? It's one of the few nations in the world that requires full credits of physical education from K to 12. My wife, who was raised in the United States, finds this fascinating and admires it and sees it as odd in the same respect. Doesn't that play into the narrative here that in South Korea or in Asian society in general, physical sport and its probably its full manifestation in the United States is American football? I mean, doesn't that play into it a little bit? Why you see kind of maybe the lack of taking it as seriously in the United States?
Yeah, in Michael Wagner's on the scientific relevance of these sports, he talks about how the things that we do in a society are very based on our values. And I believe it was in the Gilded Age when people in the United States, when people luxury time became a lot more common. So people started playing more sports, and because of all the factories and things like that going on, all the machinery, physical fitness and strength was a very valued attribute in people. So a lot of those values of physical strength that play into that historical period of time, they do come out in today's society.
And I guess my last question is great answers, and I'm asking these questions because I know what you're talking about. But then I guess my final question is, why isn't like a spelling bee or a quiz show or like debate? Why these aren't sports? Or are they? I mean, isn't there preparation and study and review and knowledge and reflex and dexterity and all of this?
Yes, I think that I did read an article saying that spelling bees are, by a lot of people, considered a type of sport. So there's that.
Do you agree with that?
I would.
What's the difference? That's, I guess, my last question. What's the difference between a spelling bee and what you're describing as, very impressive?
That is a good point. I don't see a difference. Yes. Yeah.
So sort of turning to the thing just having to say, I know it's also true that the North American teams, the North American League is considered sort of inferior when it comes to global championships in especially league. Do you think that there's any way that that is due to the cultural distinct differences and the way that like the U.S. doesn't necessarily value esports as much, even though it has a population, 20 times the size of Korea?
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the reasons that that is actually the sign that you mentioned, because Korea is so much smaller and the population is so much denser, it is a lot easier to locate people that are, for example, high level at a certain game. So then, because of the infrastructural superiority of Korea when it comes to technology, they also have more people that play these types of games. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Another slightly unrelated question. Never mind.
So recently, just overall, there's been at least a debate regarding whether the increase in violent video games is desensitizing children in other groups to violence and other acts, which some people in the States have correlated also to the rise in gun violence and whatnot. Do you think that professional game potentially, if it was more accepted in the United States, and kids begin practicing it to the degree that some of the professionals do, do you think that one, is there this relationship, and two, could that potentially have negative consequences?
I wasn't really in the scope of my research, but I do think that it does not play a very big role, because we see in other countries like China, Korea, in Europe, all these games are also extremely popular. But these trends of violence amongst children and teenagers aren't as predominant. So I don't really think that it plays a very big part.
So let me ask the converse question. And it's so interesting to ask that question, because this is the question I had in my mind. Is it possible that by creating a high-intensity tournament gaming culture in the United States, we could diffuse the violence that has emerged, or that some people are linking to the video gaming community? In other words, as I understand it, in Korea, there haven't been these issues.
They have at least not been as pronounced.
Do you think that people involved in gaming who in the United States would benefit psychologically from having, you were showing us pictures of people in a stadium playing video games, right? And there's like thousands of people sitting around watching them play video games, yeah. So that must feel pretty good to be the person who's up there playing the video game, yeah. With everybody watching you play the video game. Do you think that having the opportunity or the possibility for that kind of championship status in the United States might give some people psychological purpose in their life?
I think that is a possibility. A lot of people, it has been shown by a lot of research that a lot of, especially teenagers, use video games as sort of like a stress relief or some type of getaway, so they don't have to really deal with the rest of what's happening in their lives. So I think that if it'd be possible for things like these to be more accessible, then yes, I think it would help the issue.
What kind of cultural changes do you think, for example, American society might see if it starts moving from a society where, little kids value like physical athletes and they're like, oh yeah, I want to be LeBron James, and they start instead saying, oh, I want to be a champion League of Legends player, going from someone with physical prowess to tactical abilities and that kind of a different skill set and stuff.
You're asking how it would affect the social
Culture.
Yeah, the culture.
I think that there's always a type of split between people. There's, of course, people that are not pursuing this type of lifestyle for things like prejudice that people have against it or negative connotations that are associated with it. So I would not be able to tell you how it would play out, but it would definitely be. I think if one thing would happen because of that, it would be a very rapid advancement in the technological infrastructure of the United States. But besides that, I cannot really.
That was an interesting answer you just gave, because I think there are a lot of people who are very technologically savvy, who spend their technological intelligence on this, what we consider a game. So my question to you is, okay, when I argue about video games, say with my son and his friends, people of certain generation often try to tell me that the benefit of video games is that they teach you great hand-eye coordination, right? So apart from great hand-eye coordination, what do you think the cognitive skills that video games build and demand from champion players are? Not hand-eye coordination, I don't want to hear about that.
Well, I saw in a, while I was researching a study, well, not a study, but in an article by BBC, it mentioned that people who play video games, on average, have better motor skills and reflexes
No, not hand-eye coordination. Okay.
than the general population. There's also a lot of very highly complex strategical elements that come into playing video games, especially things like, well, I didn't mention it here, but StarCraft, for example, is notorious for being very, very mentally demanding. You would have to be upwards of things like 400 clicks per minute, and that is very difficult to achieve. But in general, a lot of video games demand a very, very high level of mental fortitude, endurance, and stamina.
Okay. So strategic intent, intelligence, mental fortitude, and you're saying it builds sustained attention.
Yes, to actually build on to Ms. Ross's question a little bit. Most esports today you play, especially the ones you're playing in teams, right? Does it actually, everyone say they always claiming like playing video games is making you as social. In this case, we're talking about a social environment, doing stuff together with other people. Could this actually improve your social skills, your cooperation skills?
Cooperative skills is something that comes into very big play into these things, especially the team-based games. For example, Hearthstone, you wouldn't really develop these skills. In games like Dota, League of Legends, Smite, Heroes of the Storm, it is very based around being a sort of like a single unit, because people have to be on the same page at all times. And it definitely does help with some sort of social, not very much, but it does help. Some social skills, especially the higher level you play, when you need more coordination. But I don't think that in general, just casually playing would help these skills.
So you have to reach advanced levels to get those benefits. Bell rang, learning's over. Thank you.